Hey, Brent, and we're live. All right, GNUSpective episode number 4. Hopefully, people notice. Got kind of a tingly feeling. I'm in a good mood. While we haven't released phase 2 of the test net quite yet, we're just wrapping it up. Hopefully, maybe today, tomorrow, release for maybe Monday or so. What we're doing is, I'm sure everybody's anxious about that, and I want to just have this because I know we're extra close. Is just we're writing a stress test on it to basically make sure that all the transactions. So why don't you give an update, Brent, on what you and Enrique talked about the status and everything about the
Certainly,
trans-
certainly. So, as is true to any software, you're going to have some bugs. So, that has been certainly a piece of what has been given attention, whether it be, a memory issue, a synchronization issue, and this is just life developing software. We've also, of course, gotten payouts working, and the job costing. We have a little simple model that's been placed in there now. Now we want to expand that later. There's a lot of sophistication that we can envision for that, but for what we're doing right now, that is totally fine. And transactions that we're processing, they are being checked for validity, so including ZK snark processing. The performance of the ZK snark is just adding to just a typical model of what we've got to address, which is we want it to be a little bit more performant than it currently is. And it's not really an issue as it is because, being a multi-threaded app, if it's taking a few seconds to process a ZK snark, this is not stopping any other progress in the app that you're using. You're completely unaware of it. But being finicky as we are, and we know how things look under the covers, and we like things to be tight, we're going to be working to improve that all the same. So this is kind of the arena that has been given time and attention as part of prepping for the phase 2. So
Yeah, and also the ZK snarks are very important to the bridging system, which is something that is kind of external to the phase 2. What it is it basically this code that watches what happens on the test net, the regular EVM test nets like Sepolia, which is Ethereum's test net. I think it's still Sepolia. And the other test nets, or even the main nets, Ethereum itself and Base and Polygon. What it does is it watches that somebody wants to bridge. It's called like burn and bridge or something like that. And this is actually separate from the phase 2. What ends up happening is then we have these little nodes, or your nodes are watching these messages and these burns on these regular EVM networks, so these EVM chains. And then once that happens, then it uses the ZK snark to basically say, hey, everybody, mint these tokens on Super Genius or on this other EVM. And that's the bridging mechanism that we're going for. And the ZK snark stuff, which we've now really tightened up, and we took over something called ZK LLVM, our own version fork of it, and just made it where it's completely cross-platform. So the ZK LLVM compiler itself runs on Linux, Windows, and Mac. You don't want to run the compiler on, of course, on the device, particularly like iOS or Android devices, or even IoT devices. But what it does, just so everybody knows, is on those host machines, when you're compiling the code or when we're making our ZK snarks, we have to have this thing called a circifier. And what that circifier does is take what we want to prove without knowledge, and that's where the ZK, zero knowledge of it. It takes what we want to prove with not knowing certain things and running it through this cryptography system, this cryptographic system that basically proves out. That's what the ZK snark does. And so the circifier basically takes what we want to prove and creates a circuit for that. And then that's all done through the ZK LLVM compiler, which we took over and now is much better than what Nil Foundation had, because we work on theirs was only working on Linux basically, and they needed it to work on Mac and Windows and everything else as a cross-platform type of system, and it now does that, which is great for us. So in general, it helps us with the bridging system and everything else that will be forthcoming during testnet phase two. We can manually bridge right now, and then the automated bridge is where the ZK snarks will have to happen during phase two. But that's no big deal because we can bridge manually, as needed, and then we'll go ahead, and the automated system is the last part of that. But that really doesn't affect the only thing that affects is the ability for you to convert your tokens in and out of the main net, or push them out to the test net. But we can do it manually for you. We can set it up and say, okay, he wants to bridge out a bunch of those. But that the first part of that will be the automated version that bridges those from our Super Genius network to the testnet EVMs like Sepolia and Base Sepolia and Binance testnet, BSC testnet, and all that. And so but that doesn't really affect phase two for everybody. What will happen is we'll just relaunch the wallet, and during phase two, and all of a sudden it'll start doing bridging automatically instead of manually. But it doesn't affect the overall AI processing and the payouts or anything like that. It's just whether or not it automatically bridges out to the test net. And then the second part of that, after we're comfortable that there's no security issues and we do an audit and all that, then we'll flip a switch, and then instead of bridging to the test nets, it'll bridge automatically to main nets back and forth. And so that's really what the difference between test net and main net for us is just the whether we're manually bridging it to make sure there's no hacks that are capable, no hacks that can happen, and then we'll flip a switch and say, okay, we're pretty comfortable now. Everything's automatic. There's still going to be some safeguards in there, by the way. And we're building in some safeguards. Like if somebody came in and they wanted to bridge, a million tokens, it may pause that until we can review it, right? So if somebody came in and hacked it for like 1.4 billion Ethereum, for instance, it'll automatically pause that. I'll say, I'm sorry, but that seems like an awful lot. Or even if they try to do 1,000 at a time over a short period of time, we can flag that. And so there's this built-in kind of mechanisms for us to go, hey, that doesn't seem right. Let's pause that transaction, or pause that person's trading capabilities until we can make sure that they haven't been hacked. And so that's kind of our way of making sure that Lazarus or somebody else can't, if they do exploit something, then we can flag that really quickly and say, oh, hold on, let us take a look at that. And I know it's not the ideal option that people want a not have an administrative overview of the network, but you kind of have to these days, just as Ethereum's thinking about rolling back that Lazarus hack to basically make sure that 1.4 billion tokens don't get distributed. We're kind of building that in with our stuff, but that hack was kind of crazy when you read what it is, because we actually use Safe Wallet too, and now I got to be more diligent about checking those things to make sure they're actually the full hash and everything that's going on. I mean, I look at it and it used to seem right, but I'm just wondering if, I don't know. We could have been a victim of that too. And luckily, we don't have 1.4 billion in Ethereum, so they didn't target us. But I don't know. It's kind of crazy, that Safe Wallet hack where they hacked a developer's machine or got on a developer's machine and then pushed out some JavaScript that masked the UI of all things. The smart contract was fine. It was just they masked the UI to a new UI through some developer's machine, and that to me is just it's crazy. It's brilliant, but it's evil, but it's brilliant. But, so anyway, I digress. Yeah, so it's going well. I wrote a stress test yesterday that I'm trying to finish up today. I'll finish it up after this meeting. That will stress test the phase two to make sure all the transactions are going through. Like you said, we have it all working, but now we're just stress testing it to make sure that there's no other race conditions or anything like that. And so, one thing I want to be clear about to everybody is when we release our code, we've thoroughly tested this thing. And so we don't expect that you will find a bug, but there's going to be those extreme edge cases that testnet 2 that you guys might find. And so I've always done software this way where, we don't expect our QA cycles or our testers to find much of anything because of the way we write code. And every time I've written things like when I did the Immortal for the piece for the PC, the IBM PC back in the day. Like I said, there was one bug that wasn't even a coding bug. I fixed that bug, accidentally created another one that was a game bug, not a coding, not a technical bug. Fixed that and the game shipped. So be patient. You're going to have, when we release this thing, it will be pretty damn solid. We've been testing the crap out of it ourselves. We're not a typical, hey, we're going to launch this and expect our community to go through and find all of our bugs or anything like that. It also cuts down on our QA cycles. So phase two will hopefully have a very, very short QA cycle. It's all I've done this for 40 plus years, and every single QA cycle for my product has been very, very short. In fact, the Immortal QA cycle for the game before it launched was 2 weeks, a 2 week QA cycle. And that was only because they had to run through the game twice or 3 or 4 times. And then it shipped. And 2 bugs. Well, 1 bug and then create another bug. So that's just how I operate. And I know people are getting impatient with that because they're used to other other coders and other projects that basically will throw out shit code and have all these bugs, and then they'll be exploited. And I'm not so conservative that we'll never ship. Let's put it that way. But I am pretty conservative that I don't want to have an exploit ever again. And I'm not guaranteeing that there won't be, but I'm going to make it so difficult that it's easier to go on to do to exploit somebody else's stuff over ours. That's my goal. Anyway, I digress. What say you, Brent?
I completely agree. So much better to just deal with the things that we know that we can establish for the integrity of the code in-house, rather than having neglected it entirely or too much so, and just say, well, we're just going to have a giant stockpile of bugs coming in from the community. It's like, come on. That granted, that maybe that gives us the ability to put something out there sooner, but that's not the way I want to operate either. So to take care of what we can take care of in-house before we are relying on the community and the testing they provide. And of course, that testing is still valuable. That's kind of the whole point of the testnet, is that there is a scenario that may emerge that we had not yet produced, internally. So, but otherwise, and having the security at a posture where, as you say, Ken, that it's just so much more of a benefit to just go hack someone else's network. It's just not worth it to be playing with ours for hacking purposes, that is.
Yeah, and I'm gonna share a screen here. Give me a second. Where is this thing? I'm gonna share a coding screen to kind of show you guys. Other projects would probably never do this, but I'm very technical, and I'm in here in the code with Enrique and the guys, getting this finished up. Even though I'm the CEO, I'm still a damn good coder, especially with ChatGPT. I mean, I don't mean to toot my own horn or pretend to have a big ego, but geez, I call myself super genius. What do you guys think I'm gonna say?
No comment.
It's a humorous thing, by the way. I'm not so full of myself that I really 100% have that kind of an ego. I mean, of course I have an ego, but I treat it with a grain of salt because, you know, I'm just human. My brain I could have an aneurysm at any time, and
Well,
it'd all be gone. So you got to be careful with your ego and keep it in check.
okay, knocking on wood. Please don't tempt any fate there, Ken.
Knocking on wood, yeah. The weird thing is why am I not seeing this? Amazon Music, WhatsApp, Microsoft Remote Desktop. I got all these windows, yet I cannot seem to find the Outbound Super G. Oh, that's it, I think. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, here we go. All right. So, is there a way to make that? Can you see that, Brent, very well? I mean, my window's not so big, but
That's
anyway,
pretty small. Let me zoom in myself.
I can maximize. Does that help?
There we go. And you might even want to scroll in on if you're showing a piece of code in a panel, like use your roll wheel to zoom in on the code a little bit
Yeah,
more.
I don't
I
know
mean,
if I can.
depending on it's for your purposes, that might be sufficient, however.
Yeah, I think it's sufficient. I mean, I full screened it when I did the window. Okay, so anyway, here's the test that I'm working on yesterday, and what it does is basically setting up two nodes here, getting their balances, and then it's going to sit there and run through this loop really quickly and basically transfer these amounts. And these are minions, really, which is basically a millionth of a genius token, basically, and that's our base thing, like they do for Bitcoin. It's like a Satoshi, but we call them minions. And these are the amounts. And this first set is the node one transferring it to node two, and then this amount is node two transferring it back. What happens is these transfer amounts all go on and they all get queued up. You can see node proc one transfers the funds to node proc two, basically, and transfers these very quickly. And then it basically sets the transfer IDs into this array here. And then this is the node two basically transferring money back to node one at the same time. And so all this is really where you can get race conditions because it's a lot of um, transfers going on the network at the same time. So this is not a lot, and I could expand this to do this 100 times or something like that, and then take this down by 100th or something like that and just loop through it. But what it does is it kind of stress tests to make sure there's no race conditions or anything like that. And we have these other tests that now pass, and we've done these tests prior, and all these tests pass. But this is like, minting tokens and all that. But this is the last part of it that's basically saying, hey, let's get these nodes all transferring data at a very high rate to each other to make sure that, something doesn't happen, like something doesn't get freed in the middle of these transfers and all that. And this really stress tests the hell out of it. This is something you can't really do without having, 10,000 nodes operating at the same time and doing this, in the community without having 10,000 nodes online and all of them doing it. So we're stress testing this before we release it to make sure that more than likely, there won't be 10,000 nodes. And then we'll release the testnet too, and then we'll sit there and go, okay, now let's really ramp this up and see if we can do 10,000 nodes and 20,000, 100,000. These tests take, less than about an hour to write now, since everything else is fixed. And so we're really testing the scaling of the system to make sure that there's no edge cases for us. And so then what it does is it basically goes through how many transactions and waits for it to go through, and then logs how long it took. And this is for us is some optimizations that we can do with the ZK snark stuff. And so in reality, this is how we prevent, and most programs or most things out there, and they don't go into this depth of, this is more than a unit test. This is almost a functional test. And we do have functional tests as well, but this is kind of a unit test, but more of a functional test. And then it's kind of a bridge between the two. And then we do have examples that we do functional tests and things like that. And I don't know any other project that does that. And what this does is it helps us scaling and not have bugs when we release, and make sure that we can test for, if people can hack and things like that. And so, yeah, that's what we do. And so this last test here, which I'm going to try to run after this and stress test this and make sure there's no little gotcha in there. And then we'll release testnet 2 after we make sure that this stress test works. So I just want everybody to know that's what the holdup has been. We've stress tested the other 2 functions, and we did find kind of the last little, what I call the Bin Laden bug, where we were hunting for him for quite a while. I know that's an old reference, but maybe I shouldn't reference that anymore. But anyway, this is kind of like we have them in the site, and we're finalizing this last, make sure the system is robust and scales. And once this is passing, then we'll release, like I said, phase 2 in the next few days. It's so close that this thing, like I said, is almost passing, but I'm just building and testing it anyway. So I was just wanting to show you guys that we're not lying about what we're doing. And I know you guys are antsy about testnet 2, but it's for the better good of the project. It really is. You're just going to have to trust me on that. All right. Anything else you want to say before we get into the questions?
Well, I'll just make a comment about the, effectively what you call functional tests inside of a unit test. I refer to them as integration tests within a unit test. And your comment of you don't know of anywhere else that's done. I kind of want to just kind of note that as well, that it's strange to me that is just about the optimality for going about, testing software. And so few software developers employ that. I find that to be a little bit baffling, but for what it's worth.
Well, especially in the crypto space. I mean, they're using, all kinds of different things, Go and all that. And they do have unit tests, but they don't have a lot of functional testing necessarily, or a lot of integration testing. This just comes from, 4 plus decades of software development. And I know this is the right way to do stuff. That's allowed me to ship products and long standing products that had almost zero bugs. And, over the 30 plus projects that I've ever launched, there's been only one where there was a game bug that somebody found in the 30 plus projects that I've launched. And there was a way around it anyway, but it's like, wow, you found it just because, you were standing on one foot with, on a Tuesday at 3:45 a.m. in the morning playing this game, and you happen to, get a phone call that, well, I don't know, something like that. It was so weird that it was like 1 in a million chance. And we're like, well, that's great, but, it didn't kill anything. It just left you kind of stuck for a second, but there was a way around it. So, yeah.
Now, to be safe, I don't want anyone to feel marginalized if you frequently are hopping on 1 foot at 3:45 in the morning, patting your head. That's okay. We're not judging. All right.
We're not judging. Yeah. So, yeah. So any dates for the Crypto Night show? That's interesting. Well, I'm gonna let Paul, if you're on there, Paul, if you want to start putting. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Paul. What is your view on desktop specifically designed run large AI models such as the AMD powered frameworks release? I think they're awesome. I think we're going to be able to leverage those. In fact, Brent and I had talked about this, where the first iteration of Genius is not going to, it is completely distributed, where we don't leverage high powered frameworks like that, or a high powered AMD chipset like that, because what it tends to do is centralize the processing, and we're kind of anti, that. That's our something we're trying to strive not to do, but we do realize that there is probably a need for that, for privacy and to have, like a healthcare company leverage those high powered frameworks. And there's nothing that prevents us from doing that other than our code saying, hey, look, we want to distribute this in a democratized fashion, right? Which precludes us from sending it to somebody that can afford this AMD powered framework. Now, there is an easy opportunity for us to embed the Genius system on um, those systems and leverage, BitTensor or somebody else, where they do basically say, hey, we can leverage the full AMD power and not just a little slice of it, and pay out in the Genius tokens. And we're kind of like a little bit of a layer on top of that. And there is some things that we might be able to do in the code that can leverage that as well, like in a private network. Say, okay, don't slice it up, democratize it, just find out who has how much power, and kind of add our own layer on top of that, and even kind of maybe interface with something like BitTensor or Render, and just pay out in the Genius token instead, and then leverage and just kind of forward that processing so that they handle it, where we don't do it that way. We democratize it. And so that's just kind of an anti-democratized AI processing system that we're not set up for internally to do, but we can actually kind of act as a proxy to do that, which is interesting. What's your thoughts, Brent?
Well, actually, when you're talking about privacy concerns, et cetera, an entity that is wanting to leverage hardware that is not the hardware that we were targeting, with GNUS.ai, from my point of view, it's like, they may not even be concerned with the crypto mining capability. They just simply want their hardware utilized,
Yeah.
and they want to have a layer that they can rely on that's going to kind of assist with carving it up for that purpose. And from my point of view, it's like, okay, fine. So, and taking out the kind of the regulation that we would normally have that would intentionally favor horizontal scaling over vertical. It's like, okay, well then just pull back on that and allow the vertical scaling to take over.
One of the other things that they could possibly do, and something we could do, is say, hey, just run 100 Genius nodes, and then you can have 100 slices, yourself, and then you can aggregate those all into one. And that's fairly easy to do. That's basically kind of cheating a little bit, but I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, if the person can do that and they have a high enough powerful machine, and you can run 100 threaded nodes of the Genius node, that's a very much a possibility as well, right? We can't prevent you from doing that. All right, is the local AI trend market something that Genius can capture, or is that category not in your parameter? No, that actually is very much. It's kind of a interesting question, because it is essentially a local AI, but it's more. Well, no, I guess it's not. It's it's a decentralized AI, so it basically does everything you want it to do. But it's kind of this weird thing where, yeah, you're part of the system. You're one of the decentralized nodes, so you could effectively act as a local AI for yourself. But in general, when we've been going through like how to set up like a DeepSeek mixture of experts type of system, you would be like 6 experts out of the thousands of experts that DeepSeek has, right? And if your experts are the ones that were picked for your particular questioning and your particular tokens that are going to go through to the mixture of experts, they're all gated, and they're gated by saying, okay, who in here has the answers to what he's asking, or who's able to process the tokens that this guy is asking the question that gets tokenized. And it's like, okay, well, I have 2 of the experts, and I can be 2 of the experts for you. Well, I have 2 of the experts, and I have 2 of the experts. If all the tokens were to feed into your particular experts, yeah, it could be a localized system, really. But because the way that we democratize the AI, there is a chance that you could force everything to go through your own uh, set of nodes on your local device. If you have a high powered AMD, for instance, right? You could force it to use our Genius system, but then you don't really need to use that. You can basically say, oh, just feed it directly in there. I have all the AI. So there's no reason to have Genius involved in that. It is really, I don't know that a local AI has a market, right? What do you need? What do you need anybody else? If you set it up on your own machine, you're doing the local AI locally, and it's your own tokens and things like that. There's no reason for payouts or anything like that. You could, of course, use the Genius SDK to use DeepSeek pretty easily, but then there's no reason to use the tokens. There's no reason to decentralize it if it's all local. So the question is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting one, but I don't see a market for anybody if you're doing everything locally, right?
Yeah, my 2 cents on this is, I could almost imagine that you could configure maybe through the wallet a preference that if by chance your node isn't currently being used for a job, then here is this other thing that you want to have done. And, the SDK will ensure that that's getting processed. But of course, this has nothing to do, as Ken said, nothing to do with you made a payment for something or funds are being distributed. It's just like, you wanted your GPU to be not idle while you're using the following 5 apps, or you wanted to have it some extra utilization for it. I mean, I could imagine something like that. No immediate example of what that would, what would inspire someone to do that, but it's certainly conceivable.
Yeah, and in general, I think if you think about it, our system kind of needs the communication. That's how we make money, and that's how the community and the token grows, is by the transactions themselves. And if you have a local AI that's going on, there's no transactions that are going on between nodes. It's just you doing AI locally, and there's no market that I can see or that I can vision. If somebody wants to figure out what that market would be, please let us know, because that's a good thing. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So anyway, let's move on to the next question. 21 million, 50 million use case for the token longer how distributed. The difference between the 21 million and the 50 million. The 50 million is the maximum supply that ever can exist, basically. The current 21 million out there, I think it's more like 19 million or something like that that's out there total. Maybe it's 21 million. A lot of those are mine. And so that is really kind of me wanting to maintain administrative control more than anything else. I don't plan on probably ever selling those, because for tax benefits anyway, I might borrow against them in a couple of years down the road or something. But in general, the 21 million will end up kind of burning over time frame as the Genius token is doing the AI processing. That will start to burn down, and then if it gets to a point where there's only like 500,000 tokens out there, and it's $1,000 a token, the processing's still going to be set at in dollar amounts, 0.0005 cents per hour or something like that. Based on the token price, doesn't really matter. That's just less Genius that you're burning. So I don't think it's ever going to slow down the token, but people will look at that and go, oh my God, I can't afford $500 for a Genius token. And then we may just issue some if people are more comfortable. Hey, we'll bring the price down a little bit, and we'll mint some more tokens. But that's kind of a lever for us. I don't think we'll ever need in general. I don't really think there's any need for that. But what it could do is kind of make people feel more comfortable. It's really dumb. I had this happen in the OTC markets when we were trading shares. What had happened is it's like, oh, I can't afford that stock at $10 because I can only get 100 of them, right? But I can buy 1 million if it's 0.0001, even though it's the same amount. They're like, well, but if I could buy 1 million tokens and it doubles, I make so much more money, right? It's easier to double on 1 million tokens because people have this kind of thing where it's like, well, if I only buy 100 tokens versus 1 million tokens, even though it's the same price, it's more to do with volatility, and I don't like that because that's speculation and people wanting to make money and things like that. So that's why the 50 million versus the 20 million don't really, I don't know. It's there, but I doubt we'll ever use the minting function on it. We may, just depends on how well the network's operating. The only time we'll really consider it is if the network is slowing down because people are too anti buying a $500, token when they can buy a slice of it. They could buy, a half a token or a quarter token or a hundredth of a token. Anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Any plans for the Poly Bridge? Oh yeah. I mean, that's what I said. We're kind of manually going to be bridging in testnet phase 2 until we're comfortable with the bridging not being hackable like it was with the Axler network. And then with the ZK snarks and going through a really, really a lot of due diligence on the security of it and audits on the C++ code until we flip the automation for it to do it. And that's kind of what we're working on. So it should be, after phase 2, when we release either phase 3 or mainnet, they're kind of almost the same to me, I believe. Phase 3 will kind of be a very quick phase 3 where we say, okay, 200,000 nodes, you go online now. Okay, everything works. Let's just flip it to mainnet or call it mainnet now. And that's just basically us saying, okay, everything's automated now instead of us manually doing it. Any kind of thing you want to add to that, Brent? I think
No.
Yeah. I heard the crypto TV show is on air soon. Yeah, supposedly around April 1st. I hate when everybody does things on April Fool's Day. It's like, yeah, we're going to be on April 1st. And then you get there, it's like, no, it's April 2nd, really. We fooled you. No, I don't know. Yeah, I heard. I don't know anything. I'm supposed to have a meeting with them, but they're probably not going to disclose who it's with. And if they do, I'm going to be under an NDA to not say who it's with. Anyway, but right now I know as much as everybody else, and so hopefully people are guessing that it's Amazon or Netflix. That'd be awesome. But who knows? Even if it's Hulu, that's cool too. Hulu would be cool. Any one of those three is good with me. But we do have some. I'm trying to line up some really good marketing with the show release, and we'll be well into testnet phase 2 by that time, and we may even be mainnet at the same time that launches. That's going to be awesome. So anyway, that's what that is about that.
Yeah, the fact that they delayed a little bit, my understanding was that they had thought that it would come into Western markets in February. At least that's what we were reporting back in like August and September of last year. And I don't know how normal it is to have the kind of delays that they're experiencing, but I think that actually works to our advantage. As kind of you're pointing out, because whether we're talking about testnet 2 or even potentially mainnet, that kind of works out to some favorable timing.
Yeah. Did I start the project with a proof of concept and one of the main insights gained by doing this? Yeah, sort of. Really, I operate a little bit different than that. So what I do is I do the architecture first, and that was the patent basically. And then I started writing up kind of an architecture document on all the little pieces. And so that was all on the wiki for quite a while on GitHub. And so I do it that way because I came from the game industry where we first would do a game design document, then a technical design document. And so my game design document was really the patent, really, which was the overall architecture of everything. And that got me to a point where I'm like, okay, let's look at the technical side of that and what way we're going to choose and what's the, whether we're going to choose C++, which I thought was, at first I was looking at Rust and, TypeScript and everything. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work too well for integrating into game engines. It's going to slow us down. And I looked at, okay, well, EVMs don't have the speed in order to do what we need it to do. I looked at Monero. I looked at all these other C++ things, and we started out using as our kind of first proof of concept something called nanocurrency, which is great, but it wasn't really integratable and didn't align with the patent with the fast DAG versus the slow blockchains, which is the crux of the patent, where you kind of integrate these two super fast DAG, super genius fast DAG blockchain with regular EVMs and kind of decouple those until you bridge those. So that's kind of where that insights kind of gained was the proof of concept was, well, we could effectively use Monero or Bitcoin or all that, but they didn't have the security involved like ZK snarks that we really needed. And that was in the back of my mind the whole time that we were going to do that. But then when the Axler network was hacked and that bridge was hacked, then it was like, oh, damn, we got to do this now. We got to make sure this is released at the same time for testnet phase 2. And that really, I wouldn't say that slowed us down, but that solidified us to move forward with kind of our own hyper blockchain or hybrid blockchain with the ZK snarks, because nobody else was doing that except for another project called Mina protocol. But the Mina protocol also didn't have some of the things that we needed to do our ability to do this hybrid. It had its own kind of system, but we couldn't really integrate very well into their hybrid blockchain. And then we'd have to use their token as well. And so we had to have our own blockchain and our DAG because of our token happened to be the reserve currency. We couldn't have another layer on top of that, like Monero or Mina. We could have probably adopted Mina's protocol, but they were doing the same thing we were doing, and they haven't released 2.0 of Mina. 2.0 version of Mina, I think, is really close to what we're doing. Would you agree with that, Brent?
Yeah, with the exception that they haven't put in the emphasis that we have into operating on small devices.
Yeah.
They have a bit more of a presumption that you're going to have more powerful devices that it's running on. But otherwise, there's certainly there's crossover, a lot of lessons to be shared between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say that I looked at Solana, and Solana was in C++ and may still be, I forget. They may be using a lot of Rust now, but originally they were pretty good. But then again, I would have to only be on the Solana blockchain, and that was the biggest problem. Was there was nobody was executing on really what the patent describes as a layer 0. That was that super fast DAG blockchain that acted as, with security and ZK snark. So it's kind of, I went back and I looked at the patent, I looked at the code, and I'm like, oh, really? We have been really true to the patent, right? And I did an analysis on whether other people were violating our patent, and they're saying, well, they might be, but nobody's using this fast DAG hybrid blockchain that you describe in the patent. And I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's kind of our secret sauce, if you will. And so even though they might violate some of the other claims in the patent, which we can go after, nobody, as far as I can tell, is actually violating the main claim, which is the hybrid fast DAG blockchain interfacing with other slower blockchains. Anyway, so I digress.
I might also add, because the question kind of made reference to insights gained. And you pointed out, Ken, this initial architecture, you kind of took it in a different direction. I'd say certainly an insight gained is when you've got a vision and a patent and an architecture for decentralized physical, infrastructure, DPIN, before the market has even come up yet with a term. That is definitely an insight gained right there. It's like, okay, clearly the vision was correct. So
Yeah, and so I think that was in 2024 that somebody called it a DPIN, which I had known to you. Some writer from some mag called it that, and somebody said, "Oh, did you know our DPIN about a year and a half ago?" I said, "What the hell is a DPIN?" I had no idea, and so I went and looked it up, and nobody was really talking about it, and so it was just starting to come. It was like on the bottom of everybody starting to talk about what a DPIN was. And I'm like, oh, sure enough, yeah, that's pretty much describes the patent. And so that was, I think, in 24, maybe the end of 23, pretty close around to the end of 23, I think it was when that came out. And actually, we could probably grok that and see.
yeah, I'm
And
typing it in right now.
yeah, and I started writing this in 2016 and started writing the patent in 2018. And at the beginning of 2019 is when I had the full patent pending filed in January 2018. So really, I'd start working on 2016 of this DPIN that I had envisioned, which is, geez, 8 years before anybody. Yeah, look at what it says. What does Grok
Yeah.
say? Whatever. When was DPIN term coined?
Yes.
All right. So
It
while
comes
he's looking that up, we can go on to the next question.
actually it goes as far back as, according to this, to ChatGPT, to November of 2022.
Oh, okay. That could be right. Still, I started the project in June of 2016, I believe, when I started
Yeah.
Genius Ventures. So that's still 6 years before anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Genius merch. You guys like this? I'm gonna. We had worked on a store for that, and I have. This is going to be premium product. We're going to print some of these for. We're going to the Game Developers Conference in March, and I'm going to print some of the T-shirts and some of these. These are high-end sweatshirts, and I'm going to kind of make this a little brighter and move it down a little bit. But yeah, we're gonna start that back up. I've just been so focused on phase two, but Genius merch. Everybody asks me for it. It's so cool when you walking around. They're like, "Oh, can I have one of those?" One of the other merch that I want to kind of put on there is our sister company, Graffiti. That logo, that we did quite a few years ago, is one of the best logos I think I've ever kind of designed. I mean, I didn't design it, but we found it a real painting or a real spray painting of that somewhere that somebody had done, which was fantastic. And then we kind of modified it with some of our own stuff on there and with the graffiti entertainment thing. And that was just so fantastic. I love that one. Everybody wants that thing. So I think we want to combine those and says, hey, this graffiti, buy one of each. So yeah, we'll ramp that back up. We were looking for what do you call that, print on demand system, which they had, but they didn't print this really high quality sweatshirts. And everybody that puts these on are just like, this is so comfortable. And then the t-shirts are so cool and comfortable. Yeah, but this is like premium stuff that we'll have the print on demand, but I don't know how we're gonna do the premium stuff. Maybe I'll and make that part of my admin's. I'll deliver them to my admin's home address so he can ship them out because they're kind of hard to do on the print on demand side of things.
And it's a testimony to just how cool the merch is when we've even seen at least one other company kind of stealing the logo.
Yeah.
Like, hello, guys, what on earth?
Well, by the way, we have that trademark now. And so from 2016. So now if anybody, I can go after them if they're doing stuff for cease and desist. Same thing with the Genius Ventures and the GNUS.ai name itself. And both logos are now trademarked since 2016. And the name Genius Ventures and the name GNUS.ai. So that's good. All right. Next question. The actual circulation on the Ethereum chain, the total that are out there are millions. So I would say that's kind of the circulating supply. Well, it's about 1,064,000. That 64 or 63,000 are what's left for us to burn from the exploit. And so, some good news come March 8th, we're going to do a little of a little we have a bunch of tokens that are in the circulating, in the liquidity pool that we can pull out from fees and stuff like that. And so we're going to basically probably March 8th, we're going to burn about 64,000 tokens, the last batch of the exploited tokens. And I've recently been in contact with the FBI, and they're going to talk with the Department of Homeland Security to see where we are on recovering of those funds, which is nice. And so the FBI may take it over if the Department of Homeland Security has shifted focus. It is their cybercrime um, division at the Department of Homeland Security, but they've been shifting focus with the new administration onto border security. So we'll see where that goes. And the FBI agent over in San Francisco, who's part of their cybercrime division, is really responsive. I mean, I sent him an email, and 2 hours later he replied. He said, "Hey, I'll talk to Department of Homeland Security to see where we are with that and see if they can take it over, because it's almost been, well, it's been since May, so it's been like 9 months. But if we recover those tokens, that's going to be so good for the liquidity, because I'll just take, and we've already burned most of the tokens. We're going to burn them. We're going to burn the last of the exploit come March. About March, probably March 10th, I would say, by March 10th. And then if we get those exploited funds back, that's going to be so great, because then we can turn around and on top of it, start to buy back the tokens from the market directly, and, take however much we get, take half of it and just really do the buyback on that. But it'll be 1 million tokens even. That should be the circulating supply on Ethereum itself. There's really, if you pull up the pool, you can really see, whoops, I'm not going to leave. Hold on, I got to open this in a new tab. The easiest way to really kind of know the circulating supply, here, I'm going to share this, is if you pull up the this thing, sharing this tab to Studio, blah. All right, so you can see this here. If you look at it's basically whatever the outstanding is minus this that's in the liquidity pool, and so that is roughly 137 that are in the liquidity pool. That's not really in the circulating supply, or people are holding roughly 850,000 tokens, roughly 860,000. That are in the supply out there that are people holding, but this is kind of what they trade roughly in the circulating supply. But it's kind of hard to say, that there's like, I think there's 10,000 over in Bitmart or something, 10,000 Genius over in Bitmart, so it's not a lot. So I would say, I would just call it 1 million in the circulating supply, because you don't know if those holders, 850,000 are holding or they're trading, because that's what we put into that pool, and the pool holds 137. And so there's really, I would say there's probably 1 million tokens in the Genius Ethereum circulating supply in general, in my opinion. Just call it 1 million even. Oakley dokley. Let's put Ken on the wiki for DPen. Oh yeah, hey, anybody want to do that? If anybody wanted to put me on, do a page up for Wikipedia for me too, that would be great. I looked at paying somebody to do that, and I'd pay somebody, $500 or something if they want to make me a Wikipedia page. I was going to go do it myself, but I want to get phase 2 out the door. Right? I don't need to be going to make my own Wikipedia page. I have most of the information. And by the way, I've gotten some solicitations to write a book about my life too, and I've been kind of storing data on Grok and other ones to about things that have happened to me in my life. And I have, my mom was kind enough to do this thing where you would take a picture since I was born on every year and write up who my friends were and a picture of me on each grade level up through high school. And I have that book, and it has addresses and my friends and my pets and everything like that. It's the coolest thing. I wish I had done that with my kids. We have pictures and digital pictures, and I can remember everything that happened. But in general, that book is really a great way for me to write a biography. It doesn't include after that, but I have LinkedIn in my career since I've been 18 and everything that's happened to me and this deep end stuff. But I got to start logging that shit to basically grok and things like that, because somebody's offered to write kind of a biography. And I've been told by a few people that said, "Hey, we know Joe Rogan. You should go on Joe Rogan, man. Your story's pretty fascinating." And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be cool. I got lots of stuff to talk about." But then his people that are on there are kind of sensationalized and talk about some pretty interesting stuff that I think I could add some value, but I really would be. I'm boring compared to some of those guys, I believe. Other people don't think so, but anyway, I digress. All right, let's move on to the next question.
Yeah, I think it's self-imposed a boringness because I think that if you're willing to open up, there's quite a breadth of very interesting things that have come out of your mouth, Ken. Just feedback for you.
Yeah. You know a lot of things that we talk about and stuff like that, which are very interesting. But yeah. All right, that'll wrap things up. Yeah, Slime Green Beats saying,
I love that
send me.
name.
Yeah, we can do that. Premium merch to holder certain amounts of tokens, maybe. That's cool. I think we could do that. Yeah, print on demand sucks on quality. All right. Well, we got about 3 minutes. I'll just scroll through here really quick. Let's see if there's any last minute. Got
Still
that
lost
one.
face.
Well, I think we offered how complicated is phase 2 compared to phase 1. I think we kind of offered that locally. All right. Well, I don't see any anything last minute words from you, Brent. I can wrap things up. I appreciate you guys. I mean, we're going to do this now a little more often, I think, after phase 2. I always enjoy this. We can start talking about the state of AI as well. And I want to kind of do that more than start talking about phase 2. I mean, and the internal technical stuff, because I think we really should have, the all in podcast. Maybe we start having guests on here, like, we could have Enrique on here or a couple other people. And we are working on a deal to kind of help out with the Mario Novels push for AI and AI agents. I want to be one of the guests on there. And so we're kind of trying to do a deal with them for me to be on a lot of that stuff. And then, maybe we have you and I on, 4 or 5 person panel. Because we do have a lot of, our project is really instrumental in decentralized AI and EPIN, and people should start to realize that, in my opinion. Last 30 seconds, go for it, Brent.
I was going to say, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and share that opinion with you. That the awareness part of it, absolutely. And we've said in the past that there's the demand, knocking at the door. And so someone says, how exciting is the next few months? The demand is only growing. So.
Yeah, and last little tidbit of information that I realized. We've been talking about doing something called a Chat Genius, which is kind of this app. And if we distribute that, it would be like, hey, pay $5 a year and you can have unlimited tokens for this, chat GPT like thing that interfaces to DeepSeek. And we've realized that it's um, I mean, not fairly easy, but it's fairly feasible. It's really feasible to do something like that in a short period of time within, like, 2 months, to have our own chat app that utilizes the whole decentralized GPUs. And we have that gives us basically customers through our own application to do unlimited tokens and upload stuff and things like that, leveraging the Genius ecosystem as the mixture of experts in a deep seek layer and a deep research layer. So it's kind of cool. We're looking forward to kind of proving that out. I know it's possible. But anyway, it was just kind of a teaser for you guys. And maybe we do that right when RightStream launches. That'd be cool. Have Chat Genius and launch that at the same time. I'd be looking forward to that.
Well, folks, I think we are probably wrapping up. Appreciate everyone joining us again. We really love taking this time to kind of open things up, and certainly we'll be catching you again soon. And probably by that time, testnet 2 will be out. And otherwise, Ken, thank you so much for your many insights and answering the questions. And with that, I guess I'll sign myself out.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. I appreciate you coming on and being the person that has good banter with me, for sure.
Yeah, just sitting here in the sidecar.